On this episode, we have a huge guest, 4-time Emmy-nominated voice actor and 2-time Emmy-winning voice actor, Danny Jacobs. You may know him better as King Julien from Penguins of Madagascar and All Hail King Julien, the TV show. He's also had roles in Futurama, Teen Titans Go, Call of Duty video games, Kick Buttowski, and many more. This is one you surely don't want to miss as we talk about his background coming from the city of Detroit and how he got to where he is now, along with all of the characters and shows that he's played. Also, huge shout out to our sponsors, Fishbones, the best sushi restaurant in all of Michigan. Make sure to check them out in St. Clair Shores, Southfield, and downtown Detroit. Let's jump right into the podcast.
Roger that live!
Roger that, and we're out of here.
We're out of here.
Coming out of Vegas. Roger that. Coming out here. Roger that. Roger that. Go white. Go green, go white. Roger that. Roger that. Roger. Yeah.
So you guys don't go by senior, junior. It's just Roger. Because I'm a junior.
Okay, so
I'm a junior, so my mom would yell Danny in the house, and my dad would go, "What?" And she'd go, "Little Dan," when I was young.
Yeah, I'm still little Rog.
Yeah, she'd say Little Dan. And then when I got a little bit older and I didn't want to be called little, she'd say Danny. My dad'd say what? She would say Young Dan.
young Dan. So
And then when I got to be a man, she'd say Danny. My dad'd say what? And she said, Your son.
your son.
She would just say, Your son.
So we were more like, so my dad was Roger, right? So then I was Little Rog.
Oh.
And I'm Little Rog with all my cousins right now.
Are you a junior? Do
No,
you have
because
the first
it gets
different middle name?
Yeah, he's Joseph. I'm Anthony. He's Anthony. So at nowadays, you really don't have to go by any. So they said if you want to make him the third, because we'd be more of a hierarchy.
Oh, then you can call him Trey.
Roger that. We're coming at you from the great state of Michigan, and today we've got a guest,
Danny Jacobs.
and we're gonna go and we're gonna dive in deep.
All right, let's do it.
But I must say we switched the
setup.
area.
We're in the
setup.
basement.
We're in the basement. It was too hot. The RV's smoking hot again, and we did that once with Steve.
Steve Alexi was brutal.
How many hours did we do that? It was
Oh, that was like, it was never ending. It was a
like
never
7, 8 hours we were
ending
there.
interview podcast. That was
We got more footage. We don't really even need to have.
There was like 4 hours where there was like 4 extra hours where there was no cameras on, everything was dead.
So we had the generator going. We had the cameras
Now
going.
I look like a diva because
Yeah,
he
he looked at you like,
68 degrees cool.
he's like, dude, what are these guys doing on this thing? But so it was so hot that day.
It's hot today though. Today's
It's screaming hot. And I just got the air conditioner running, and I really thought that we'd be cool, but
Yeah, it's got to be a couple
it'll
hours
work
before.
though. It will work, right? That air?
Yeah, but it's got to be running for like 4 or 5 hours.
Yeah, it's got to get going.
Those mini splits are sweet, man.
They are nice. They are nice. So just a quick background on Danny. So we actually all went to high school together, although I was younger, right? So
Yeah, we were all younger.
we were all younger. So I was a freshman. Danny was a senior. His sister Janet, very good friend of mine, she was a freshman with me. And I had reached out to Janet. I actually saw you the one day at the house. I don't know if you remember, but when she moved out of her last house, she had a lawnmower over there. And she gave it to me.
We were just talking about that.
And she's like, hey,
I was actually just reprimanding her for not charging you any money for
she
that.
goes, she goes, you would have seen it on Facebook that night. Though. You could have been missed. I was just like, she goes, hey, Rod, I don't even know how it came up. And I says, Janet, I'll take that lawnmower. She's like, all right, come get it. So I says, all right. So I go over and I get it. I'm like, wow, man, I thought it would, I didn't realize it was such a nice little lawnmower.
Yeah.
So but we keep that for like, if we have a special event, because I got a bigger one coming up the hill.
You need a bigger one.
But we throw it in the front line, like we're having a party, we'll cut it real nice with that.
Oh,
right.
you
That's
do.
just for like
Little manicure
Specialty
job with it.
events.
that is like I always think, man, I like the Lebanese people. I like Janet. She's cool. She sent over this nice mower. That's why you see my lawn looking so manicured. But other than that, no, I'm using the yellow one really fast. But and I saw you, and I think you just got back from Arizona at that time.
What year was that?
It wasn't.
Janet sold the house. It was 2 years ago.
2 years ago. Okay. So that was
So, yeah.
2021. That was I was living in Arizona at that time. I was probably just visiting.
So I did some research, and this is what I do. I've got some questions, and Roger always comes in with the heavy hitting. So be ready when Roger asks the questions. Be ready to go real deep.
He comes in with a sledgehammer.
I watched another podcast that you were in, and they had asked you some questions about it, and you said that you kind of got involved in a few of the plays, and maybe at Bishop Gallagher.
Yeah.
And you were thinking, hey, I can meet some girls here. You're a young guy. You're going, hey, this is where it's at.
Yeah,
right?
I wanted to play sports, and when I was a freshman at Gallagher, I was 5'2". I just wanted to play basketball.
Tough to play at that height.
Yeah, so I was 5'2", and I got cut freshman year, and then I went out for the team again sophomore year. Wait, did I? Let's see, was it sophomore or junior year? I think it was sophomore year.
All right.
And that was a heartbreak because the guy who was coaching that year, I felt like in his freshman year, it was the football coaches and they had all the football players on the team.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't play football because my dad wouldn't let me play football.
Yeah.
I wanted to play football. But I'm grateful that my dad didn't let me play football now because I got enough traumatic brain injuries as it is.
Yeah.
So, but the second year, it was Coach Mike Francis, who was my 7th grade basketball coach.
Oh,
and
nice.
And only 15 guys were trying out for the team.
Okay.
And he told us before tryouts, he's like, guys, I got 15 uniforms. I got 15 guys going out for the squad. If everybody gives me 110%, everybody makes the team. And I was like, this is going to be great. It's going to be great. I just wanted to be on the team, But and as we were, and I started growing a little bit. I don't know, maybe I was 5'5" or something. But
good basketball.
Me and one of my best friends, Phil Foster, and another kid, 3 of us, he cut us.
He did?
Cut us. And my other friend, Jim Shanley, who was a good ball player, but he couldn't try out because he was injured. He made the team because he was on the team the previous year, which he shouldn't have made the team. But we all should have made the team. But me and Phil and the other guy, I'm trying to remember who it was, we were absolutely crushed driving home. More so because he told us ahead of time.
We got 15 guys.
Yes. If he would have never said that, we'd have been just like, And so I was heartbroken. And then I didn't go out for the team. I didn't go out for JV when I was a junior. And then I kind of had a growth spurt. And I made it up to like 5'10", 5'11". And some of the guys weren't playing anymore. And Biotti was the coach. And he asked
Ron Biotti.
And I had grown, and he asked me to try out for the team. And at that point, I had found the plays, So because in freshman year, my brother and my best friend Jim Shanley's brother were both in. No, they weren't in that year. But my friend Jim was in the freshman play, which was West Side Story.
Oh,
and he's like,
love
you gotta
that
be
show,
in it.
man.
He's like, do play. Let's come and do the play with us. And I'm like, plays. I don't know. It sounds like that's for sissies. I didn't even know what a sissy was or whatever, but it sounded like something I didn't want to be. So I was like, yeah. So then he got me and my brother to go to one of the rehearsals. And then we see pretty girls in leotards rehearsing dancing. And
You're like, oh, this is
hold
it,
up.
man.
I was like, hold up. There might be something.
This is
Like
it.
Snoop Dogg. La, la, la. Hold up.
So we decided to try and join. And like in those days, like in a high school play, like they did one musical a year. You rehearsed for like 5 months. And then you did the show for
Big
like
deal
2
at Gallagher,
weekends.
man.
Two weekends you did the show. So we start rehearsing and we're like way behind. We're, everyone already knows the dances. So it was a little stressful and I wasn't doing well grades wise. So we both dropped out, me and my brother. But then I went to see the play and I was just like, it was like magical. Because I was like, how are they doing? The music and they're dancing and they're acting. And I'm like, this is amazing. Like one of my classmates, Ron Slaybank, who was on my baseball team, Little League Baseball. I remember one of the moments there are 2 moments that I remember, and this is always true of a live show. You remember the stuff that doesn't go right. Usually.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So one of those things was during the gang fight scene, there all this crazy running around, and Jim Shanley ran into somebody else, smacked face together. His nose explodes.
Oh no.
He broke his nose. He goes off stage, cleans up, stuffs some stuff, and finishes the show. And I'm just like, what? And then there was a scene in the drugstore, and Ron Slabink was playing the drugstore owner, and there was a real gumball machine on the set, and it tipped over and shattered, and the gumballs went everywhere.
Oh no!
And he just grabbed a broom and goes, "You crazy kids, when are you guys gonna stop?" And he just improvised, and I was like, "What? Sorcery! Sorcery!"
That's cool.
It
That's
was-
cool.
Yeah, it was like, what? How does anyone ever do that?
Yeah, that's cool.
First time I ever saw it. So then I was just like, and I remember being in the seats and being like more nervous for them than probably they were. Because and so I just told myself, I'm not going to miss out on that next year. And then the next year they did Grease. They did the musical Grease.
All right.
And I was just in the chorus.
This is your senior year now.
No, that was sophomore
Sophomore year.
Oh, so this is going into junior. Gotcha.
Yeah, so sophomore year I was in Greece and I was just in the chorus. I didn't have any lines or anything. So it was super fun. I met all these great friends, Paula Grislack Kane now, and just a ton of other friends. And it was just so much fun not being under pressure to have a lead role. Then the next year we did The Wiz and I got cast as the Scarecrow. So I had a lead role, I had to sing and all that stuff. Then senior year we did Jesus Christ Superstar and I was Pontius Pilate.
Oh, jeez.
And so every year it got, and I remember the first time like that applause, I heard that applause, it's a little intoxicating, especially like we got individual bows, So I remember,
Right.
everyone would go out, you'd hear the swell of the applause.
Yeah.
And I went out there not expecting to hear much. I was like, and I was like, whoa, it almost knocks you back in your heels. And you're like, I like the way that feels.
Yeah.
People like me. I'm not a loser. Because you're just trying to find your way in high school.
Yeah.
And so that kind of stuck. And then I seemed to have a knack for it, but most of it was impression. Like, I remember when I played the Scarecrow, I just tried to sound like the guy on the record.
So this
Hinton
starts.
Mantle.
Okay, I gotcha.
Yeah, so I'm foreshadowing a little bit. And same thing with Pontius Pilate. It was played by Barry Dennen in the Broadway cast. And I just without even trying, I just was emulating his voice and his cadence and all that kind
Right.
of stuff. And then, but I still didn't feel like it was something I could do or necessarily, I didn't know I wanted to do it for a living because in my family, there wasn't anyone really doing in the arts or entertainment as far as I knew.
Right. It's not like you go to somebody and say, "Hey, man, what do you think about this?" Well, I've got a friend that does it.
Yeah,
Here you are on the east
you
side going,
naturally
"Where am
can
I
do-
going?"
You naturally can do what you see another man older than you in your life doing. So my dad was a business owner. I never had a question in my head, could I be a business owner? I knew that was an option.
Right.
So there's someone to blaze a trail. You're a builder. I'm sure you always thought
100%.
if I want to be a builder, it's
Done.
It's done.
It's
right?
easy.
Yeah.
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 But when it's something totally opposite, my dad was a bar owner, restaurateur for most of his career. And we're talking about being an actor, So how does that translate? Now I found out my dad was a professional entertainer.
Really?
Later on, he didn't really keep it hidden, but he never talked about it. But during the World War II years, he didn't go to the war. But he did sometimes work for the USO as a jitterbug dancer with my aunt, his sister.
Really?
They were pro jitterbug dancers.
That's really cool.
And he had all the clippings. Like
Really?
of him playing here and this club and that club, Danny Jacobs and his jumping, jiving jitterbugs. And I was
Oh
like,
my
what the-
God,
No
that's
wonder
so
he does. and-
cool.
But my dad was always like, it's tough to cut the cake, get something to fall back on. It's not a good life. And he had some experience. He wasn't lying, so, but you always want to please your father as a son, whether it's consciously or subconsciously. You want your father's approval and you want his praise. So I was always looking for what would please my dad. And he didn't like a lot of things, but he was very impressed by a couple things, which is a great athlete. And I tried that and failed. I was a good athlete, but not in the organized sports sense,
Yeah.
if we were playing pickup ball, I'm going to get picked first, but if, but the other thing was he was always impressed by the great actors, the De Niro's, the Pacinos, the Marlon Brandos. And he would say, that guy's great. And he was impressed by Frank Sinatra, guys like that, who were the top.
Of the best.
Yeah.
Right.
And he had connections to those industries in one way or another. With baseball, for example, my dad's first cousin was a pro baseball player. And he was a center fielder by the name of Bill Hassey. And my Uncle Billy was a really good center fielder, but he was in the Yankees farm system when Mickey Mantle was the center fielder going out, DiMaggio was going out and Mantle was coming in.
So how do you jump in?
So
It's tough to
Cleveland
get in that
wanted to
spot.
bring him up to the bigs, but he's like, his dream was to play for the Yankees in the pinstripes. And in those days, they didn't make any money. So he's like, I'm just going to go be a salesman. And he just became a sales rep for a beverage company.
Is that right?
Yeah. But his son, Ron Hassey, became a pro baseball player in the bigs for
Is that
15
right?
years. And he has the distinction of being the only catcher in Major League Baseball history to catch two perfect games.
Wow.
He caught one in each league. He caught one for Len
Holy
Barker in
Toledo.
Cleveland in 81, and then he caught another one in Montreal for Dennis Martinez in like 93 or something like that. And he won 2 pennants in a World Series with the Oakland A's. The famous scene of Kirk Gibson's limping home run,
Yeah.
he was the catcher. Because whenever Eckersley came in for the A's, they brought my cousin in.
Really?
That's
Because
cool.
Eckersley wanted to throw to my cousin.
Is he
so-
still alive today?
Yeah.
Is he here or
Thank
is he
God.
out west?
No,
or-
they all live in Arizona. There, that's kind of what introduced me to Arizona. Is we used to go out and vacation there every year. So, but anyway, so this idea that we and whenever Ronnie came to town to play the Tigers, he would get us a bunch of tickets, and we go to the Tiger games for free, and he'd get us signed baseballs and bats, and we got to sometimes meet some of the other players, and
That must have been
so it was
thrilling.
just it was one of those things
It's
where
big.
yeah, you're starstruck, and you're just like, even your own cousin, you're kind of starstruck by your own cousin. It's like,
Yeah.
wow,
For sure.
he did it, he made it, somehow he made it. So that idea was there. So I guess if I was like top level talent in baseball, in that sense, I would have said, well, there's someone to blaze like I wouldn't have doubted I could do it, But when the entertainment industry, I went to Wayne State for a couple years, and I was just doing general studies, and I was doing community theater at night, loving doing theater at night and hating doing school because I didn't have any focus. And I said, well, I need a change of scenery out. So I'm going to try and transfer to the University of Arizona. I applied there to see if I could get in. And around the same time, my mom had a cousin that was on Broadway in the original production of Les Miserables. And I was like, what? We have that's your cousin, John Norman Thomas. So John, I had never spent any time. I barely knew them. I knew about their parents. I knew my parents were cousin with their parents, but I didn't know that he was an actor. And he went off. He went to, I think he went to, what are the schools like Lance Cruz North, maybe?
Okay.
I think that's where he went to high school. So totally different world from Gallagher and all that.
Yeah.
But apparently he was a little older than me, and he's off blazing this trail. And he was in the original cast of Les Miserables.
Wow.
So when I was when I started and I got accepted to U of A and I changed my major to musical theater. So I get a hold of him and I'm like, hey, I'm your cousin. Like I heard, and we're coming to New York and I'm gonna come and see you. We're gonna come and see you in Les Miserables. And he's like, oh, I'm not gonna be in that show. I'm not in that show anymore. I just got cast. He got cast in what was it? A Shakespearean play with Dustin Hoffman, The Merchant of Venice. And so I'm like, well, we already have tickets. So we went, he's like, we're sold out. The entire run is sold out. Cause when there's someone that big of so we didn't get to go see him in that, but we got to stay with him in his apartment in New Jersey. And, it was just really cool. I went and saw my first Broadway show and all that. And then I was just like nose to the grindstone. And when I got to U of A and I started getting a sense of like what acting is all about, the craft of acting. So I think I started out just wanting to like find an identity and maybe be rich and famous and, have the ladies.
Right. There's the girls again.
But when I got into the actual craft of it, and I had, by chance, I had a really good acting teacher my first semester or two.
All right.
And that makes a big difference. Like if you get a bad teacher in your beginnings, it could really mess you up.
The same thing with like a bad basketball coach or
Yeah,
ruin you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You could form bad habits, or they could just like discourage you in some
100%.
way, or not encourage you in the right ways, or put you on a bad path technique wise or something like that. But this guy was all about the work and all about like integrity of the work and honesty in the work.
Nice.
And so once I got a taste of that, and I tried out for the shows and I didn't make it, and instead of being discouraged, I was like, I'm going to work 10 times as hard and I'm going to get cast in the next set of shows. And I did. And then little by little, I just kept getting bigger and bigger roles. So each time I switched sort of the environment, whether it was a high school environment, and then you have in your mind, you're like, oh, but now it's college, it's different. And this new, you construct, or I construct, and I think a lot of people do, in your own mind, you construct a whole new giant hurdle to get over.
Right.
Most of it's in your mind. But so then that starts to get destructed as you start to do well and work hard and get more. And I think in my senior year, I won the Best Actor award and did a bunch of shows and graduated. And by that time, I felt like, this is what I'm doing. Nothing's going to stop me. And I remember our program at U of A was a conservatory program, which means after each semester, you had to audition to get back in to be into the next level, to move into the next level.
Oh, gotcha.
So every semester was like a panic attack.
It's like an interview. Yeah, it's tough,
You
right?
had to do like a full-on 2 monologues and a song, and there's a jury that are taking notes. So, and people were getting hacked along the way that you thought these people are good actors, and they're like not making it.
And you're going, holy shit!
Yeah,
what are you saying? Like, oh my god!
But I remember in my mind, and I one of my classmates asked me, "Aren't you worried that you're not going to get past juries into the next level?" And I was like, no. They're like, why not? And I was like, because I already know I'm doing this for a living. I don't care what they say. If they say I can't do it here, I'll go somewhere else and do it. And that
You're
was the
determined.
attitude. I just because I really had found like my thing, and I knew it.
So
And-
that moment you would say was in college or high school?
Yeah, I was in
The
college.
moment you knew that this is what you were doing.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know because I needed a lot of third-party validation.
Right.
Because growing up in Detroit's already a place that's like, there's a lot of humility, but there's also a lot of false humility.
Yeah.
So false humility is like, oh, I'm not special. I'm no good at this. I'm just gonna keep my nose to the grindstone. Whereas like at this point, if someone says, you're really good at voiceover, for me to say no and do that fake deflection thing, it's just dishonest. Like
Right.
It's like we all know. Like, and I know too, like, and not in a braggadocious way. It's just the fact. It's a gift I was given that I tried to hone and do my best with.
Yeah.
But false humility is, I'm not that great. I'm just lucky, right? Puffed up pride is like, oh yeah, I'm the best, and no one's better than me. The humility is where the truth is. I'm a guy who was given some natural gifts, who did my best to hone those gifts, and also got a lot of breaks along the way that I have nothing to do with. So the truth is in the middle. That's where humility is. But both I see in Detroit, there's a tendency to lean toward the false humility, like nobody's you're from and I find that there was that in my somewhere in my dad there was that too, because he really wanted us to be humble. He didn't ever want us to brag.
Of course.
And sometimes that erred to the side of don't ever. You almost got the message like, don't ever think you're good at anything.
Yeah.
Whereas I think what he meant by it was, be humble, know that you're being given things and you're doing the best, But I had to overcome that in my mind, like and kind of sort through that over the years. And
There's a we talk about this all the time, and there's a line between cocky or confidence.
That's right.
And I raised him and his brothers to be confident.
Mm-hmm.
Be confident. Shake.
Yeah.
Give a good handshake. Look a person in the eyes.
Right.
Like you just said, if you're gonna if somebody compliments you, you had a great game. Hey, thanks a lot. Oh no, just like I was just when you were just saying, I was thinking, shit, these are some of the things because they were always the things that bother me in life. Like people, some of the time when I was younger, people thought, oh, Roger, he's cocky. But the truth was, I was just confident. I was trained to walk into a room.
Yeah.
Be honest, demand you demand the presence of the room, but you're not demanding it. You're walking in and they know, hey, this guy. People, it's funny with me, and it's like if I'm telling you a story, and you're going, oh man, I don't know, it's just what's the story about? But then you talk to somebody else in a year, and they'll say, oh yeah, this one time with Roger, and you go, holy shit, that story was true. So I'm not here to bullshit you.
Yeah.
I got a ton of stories, right?
Yeah.
But like you're saying, that confidence or that deflection, it's just, to me, it's huge. And the kids that come here, I notice some of these guys are this confidence level. I like it because they're not overly confident. They're confident in what they're doing. He's got a couple buddies that are really good at hockey, and when I talked to him, I thought this kid could go pro. Well, then I talked to the pro that we did that podcast with, and he said, "Oh yeah, oh my God, that kid's fabulous. I mean, he's really good. If he stays grinding,
Right.
he's that
There's
good."
always
Guy.
the if.
He's seen him play, but
Yeah.
there's but you
So
can't-
many dominoes have to fall.
Yes.
In
To make
such a sequence.
For sure.
For so long, for you to actually make it into one of these industries where everyone wants to be in it, and there's just way more people wanting to be in it and trying to get in it than there are jobs for. So it's like that with sports. It's like that in entertainment, and and then you have to deal with the reality. Like in my case, and you see this in sports too, where you're the big fish at the high school level, right? Then you get to college, you're like,
Yeah.
Oh man.
all of a sudden they're like,
So
well,
different.
you might be D3. You might be able to be on the team on D3. Or you might go D1 and then you're fighting to get playing time.
Right.
Yeah.
And then it's this whole, and then sometimes
All of a
the
sudden,
guys
everybody's
who are-
as good as you, if not better. The
a
whole
lot of
world.
these kids have not, like, imagine you're like 6'10" and you're at some small school and like you've barely had the opportunity to play against anyone that can even hang with you. Now all of a sudden you're playing with guys who are as tall, as big, and more developed. And you're like, that's why they have to go play AAU and all that stuff, because they got to get the competition. Otherwise,
Have
they're
to.
gonna be way behind.
You don't get it. Yeah.
So, in the entertainment world, it's like every time you step up, you're like, you move. That's why I tell people start where you're at. Like people say, my kid wants to be an actor, or I want to be an actor. It's like, all right, where do you live? You live in Des Moines? Start looking for a community theater there. Or you're in grade school, do the school play. Because in their mind, what they're thinking is like, well, I want them to be in movies right now. And I'm saying,
not how
if
it
they're a
works.
kid, that's the last thing you want. You see how child
actors,
actors do. They don't handle it very well. None of us really handle, I've never had to deal with major fame, but I'm kind of like famous adjacent.
Right.
Like I'm near people who are at a certain level of fame where it's scary to see what they have to deal with,
Yeah.
And that's completely separate just from the talent part. But when the talent part comes down to it, like when I do a voiceover job, every time I audition or every time I do the job, I'm either up against or working with some of the best on the planet every single time.
In voiceover or other
In voiceover.
face actors, meaning
Yeah.
somebody.
For me, it's voiceover because I don't do on camera anymore. I don't do on camera anymore. But when I did, like one of the last things I did on camera was Mad Men. So I'm with John Hamm and John Slattery and
This is Yurin Ben Shulhai from the Israeli Ministry of Tourism.
It is pronounced Yoram.
Of course.
Glamour, like glamorous, that's the word. We saw your awards. We were impressed with your work on Rio de Janeiro.
it's like you just have to be really good and really professional. And then your scene's over, you shake their hand, and you walk away. But with voiceover, like you can't ever get cocky because my colleagues are way too good.
Really?
And then they would say the same thing about me. Like we're just blown away by each other's talent. We all do a little bit different things, but even when we're doing the same thing, it's always more amazing when you hear someone else do it than because you know yourself and you know. But I mean, the very first series I ever worked on, which was I did some extra voices for Futurama, but the first series I had a lead in was Penguins of Madagascar for Nickelodeon, and I'm working with John DiMaggio, I'm working with Jeff Bennett, I'm working with Kevin Michael Richardson. These are like giants in the voiceover industry. So I'm just like, keep your mouth shut, keep your head down, do your job, and that's what I did.
Then where were you at this point in time? Are you in Arizona?
No, that was
California?
LA.
Where are you?
Yeah, that
You're
was
in California.
Yeah.
So you're living in Arizona, but going out there to
No, when I graduated from school in Arizona, I moved to California for about a year and a half, a year. I wasn't ready to be out there. And I moved back to Detroit. And I was in Detroit from I started doing theater in Detroit.
Okay.
For many years, just doing regional theater here. My first professional play was at the Purple Rose Theater in Chelsea. It was a play Jeff Daniels wrote called The Vast Difference, which was really funny comedy and great actors and director and Jeff was involved. That was great. That was the funniest story about that for me was when I auditioned for that, I was auditioning for a character named Chico Fernandez. So I didn't get the whole play. I just got the scenes, a couple of scenes. And I say Chico Fernandez. I'm like, okay, maybe this guy's Puerto Rican. So I started doing an accent like this, yeah? And I'm like, you're here because you want to end whatever. I started doing this, And I'm looking around. I'm like, no, none of these guys look Hispanic. Maybe I have a good shot at this, And I'm just into it. I'm just like really getting into the writing and the scene. And I go into the room and Jeff's in there and the director and everybody. And I do the scene and they're just dying laughing. And I walk out going, well, that couldn't have gone better. And then
You're like, wow, this is great, right?
And I am getting cast, right? And we did that show at the Purple Rose, and then we moved it downtown to the Gem Theater. And it was Detroit Tiger themed. There was themes of that in the play. So there was tie-ins. We got to meet Al Kaline and
that's
Ernie
cool.
Harwell, and it was great. And Jim Price. And so I had been doing this play for like 8 months. And then later in the summer, I was getting ready to maybe move back out to LA again. And I asked Jeff, can I have lunch with you? I want to pick your brain about LA and acting and stuff. And he was gracious enough to have lunch with me. And he said, that at that lunch, he told me, he was like, well, he was building me up. He was like, listen, I'm going to tell you what my dad told me. He was like, nobody's better than you. Don't go out there thinking everyone's better than me or there's people better than me. Just assume you're on this level playing field, right?
Yep.
And later I added my own. No one's worse than you either, because that kept me balanced. Like, don't look down on people,
Right.
Because I always had to keep that spiritual balance. And then he told me, he's like, you're just as talented as anyone out there working right now. And I felt like I could take that compliment to the bank because he worked with me for a long time. It was his own play. He's not trying to puff me up. We're not in front of anyone else. And he said, I said, well, thank you. That's really great. And I was like, you really think so? Because I like I said, I had to be convinced. No matter how good I was, I had to really have it reinforced. You're good at this. Go ahead and do it. Because in the back of my mind was like my dad's voice, like, it's tough. It's really tough. Get something to fall back on and all that kind of stuff. So he said, he goes, yeah, I'm serious. And he said, we rewrote that role for you in the play. And I was like, what are you talking about? He goes, the Chico Fernandez role was not the way you played it. Or, he goes, originally it was a joke. His name was a joke. It's a one-time joke in the play where he was supposed to be a white dude his parents loved the baseball player Chico Fernandez so much that they named him Chico Fernandez. And the joke in the play before they rewrote it was, which I never saw, which was, they would send out every year these postcards, Christmas cards, Merry Christmas from the Smiths and our son Chico Fernandez. I never saw that.
Right.
So I mistakenly thought this guy's Puerto Rican, and I played it like that. And he goes, when you came into the audition room and you did what you did, I was like, that's way better. I'm changing it to that. But they never told me. They rewrote it immediately.
That's super cool.
Yeah,
that is
super
cool,
wow,
right?
How cool is that? And I never knew the whole time doing the play. But that was like a really nice. So I was getting these little boosts as I went along, finding out I had a cousin on Broadway and then getting some third poly, when I was at university, having good teachers who told me, no, you're good. And then actually winning some awards and my grades came up. And, I remember sitting around the family room one year and my dad were sitting there like on New Year's Day. We're just kind of in the afterglow of having a really nice holiday season together as a family. And I remember saying to my dad, now at this point, he sees my grades go through the roof and my teachers are sending letters and complimentary and I'm winning these awards. And I said, so Dad, what do you think about this whole acting thing? And my dad said, well, you may as well give it a shot. Otherwise you never know. And when he said that, for my dad, that was like him saying, son, I believe in you, go for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I just remember a door opened up in my mind, like,
oh, it's
okay. Like he's with me, And since then, that's when like I never looked back. And that's when like people say, are you afraid? No. not afraid. It doesn't happen right away. I mean, you're talking about 10 plus years of bartending and doing regional theater and, having some success and then having it fall away and then having more success and having it fall away, making a lot of sacrifices, moving away from your family and all this kind of stuff. And so there's always this ebb and flow where the work comes and it goes and it comes and goes. And, even when I finally got my foot in the door of animation voiceover and I started working regularly and I even won a couple of Emmy Awards and all that kind of stuff, it's still the same thing. It's still like, I still have to find my next job. Like, they don't give you like $100 million when they give you those statuettes. In fact, you don't even own the statuette. They'll tell you, the Emmys will tell you, we own this statuette. Don't go eBay in it. You have to sign a release.
So you get it because you got the Emmy.
You get to hang on to it, but you can't sell it on eBay because people started to sell it on eBay and then they changed the rules. So they said, all right, we're going to make this a...
So 2 or 3?
Because 2, I was nominated 4 times and I won 2.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that must have been something. Was it something for you, or was it?
It was never a goal of mine. If I'm honest, the goal was to win an Oscar because I wanted to be a movie star.
Yeah.
Okay.
Initially, that's what I wanted. The Emmys I never thought about because I never thought, and if I did think about it, maybe, I just never thought about it. When I won it the year my dad died.
Oh.
So I remember it was a very empty feeling for me because it was like the one value it would have had to me was like, Dad, to give it to my dad.
Did he pass prior?
He passed in February and I won it in May. But I remember I was there and it was really amazing to hear your voice and your name called and you're up against these other amazing actors. So I was very grateful for it. But
what roles was that for?
That was for King Julien.
Both of them?
In the Penguins of Madagascar. The second one, they were like, the first one was 2010, I think. It was for Penguins of Madagascar for Nickelodeon. The second one was like 2015 that I won. And that was for All Hail King Julien, which was the Netflix spinoff. And that one, I wasn't even there because I felt so bad that day, like physically, that I just didn't go. So I was like literally in bed and my phone starts getting blown up. Hey, congratulations.
Congrats.
I was like, what?
I won.
Yeah. Like,
so
I won
then
again.
When did you decide voice acting? Where did that come along?
So I was doing theater and that was all going great. And, theater doesn't pay much.
Yeah.
And theater only pays when you're doing it. There's no residuals or anything like that. So the day you close, that's when you cash your last check. And you're out on the street again, unemployed. And my whole thought was I wanted to have a family. I wanted to get married and have kids, and I wanted to be able to support that family with my own. I wanted to be the provider. So I had a hard time seeing how I could do that with theater because it's possible, like maybe the best path would be to go to New York and do Broadway and to just always, if you could always be working, then you might be fine. But I did always have it in the back of my mind. I want to be a film actor. I want to have a long, successful career working in film and TV.
Yeah.
So,
film.
But you're doing this theater, and then you were an actor in shows, right? You were in shows, I probably doing the voice, right? Is that the next move?
Well, the next move was the first idea was I'm going to LA and I'm going to try and audition for movies and TV.
So you're there. Give us some background of the day of that. What is that like?
Well, I had no clue what I was doing. I was right out of college. I had no experience, no resume. I was actually in the union because this weird thing happened in the state of Arizona at that time when I graduated. They said, if you have done a number of professional level plays, and they included university level plays, then you can send us, they were trying to bolster the membership.
Boost the union up. Yeah. Right, there you go.
So like you can buy into the union. And at that time in Arizona, it was like $400. So I sent them my resume. They're like, okay, like you can send them $400 and then you're the union.
Really?
So I actually had my SAG card when I went to LA. I'm completely broke. I'm driving like a broken down 78 Chrysler LeBaron. And I'm bartending at night to try and make money. And I'm making like $7 a night in tips.
Oh my God.
Totally broke. And there's no prospects. Like I couldn't get an agent. It was just like you submit to agents to try to get an agent. Maybe you go on general calls and like, you don't realize the scale of it. It's a little overwhelming. So you're like, I think I'm a Lebanese kid with a big nose. So I go on an audition for people with big noses. And you're like, I don't have a big nose compared to these dudes.
They have
like,
big noses.
Right. You're like, these are like world-class level
Noses.
big noses. And I'm like, dang. I'm like, what do I? So
That's all preconceived shit, bro. What's going on
it's
here?
it's all how you look is so important in the on-camera world.
I get it.
Now in the live theater world, the way I looked was always it was what they called nondescript ethnic. I could play anything. I was like a chameleon. I could play French or Middle Eastern or Italian or American, right? And it opened me up, and I could play all these different age ranges, right? So it opened me up to a lot of roles. But in LA, when you go out there, when you're trying to first break in, you have to kind of look like one of the pre-established archetypes. So you walk in the room and they go leading man, or they go character guy, they go overweight cop, they go detective, they go, lifetime ex-con. There's these categories, and I never fit in any of them. So every time I walked in the room, they'd look at me with a blank face, like I don't know what to do with it.
You knew right then and there. You knew like, oh man, give me that blank.
No, because in my I didn't know right away. I just felt like obviously I'm a leading man. I mean, I'm the next coming of Andy Garcia.
Right.
That was going through my mind, and I was pretty. I was much better shape, much younger, much better looking back then. But you're not on that. It's like. I went from playing like small time high school basketball and being the star on the team when it comes to good looks.
Yeah.
When you get out there in the industry, you realize like I can't even get into D3.
Yeah.
That's what it's like, because like these guys are really good looking and really in shape, and really proportioned, So I'm like, man, what's gonna happen here? And that was, for me, that was like, so. But I always felt like, I'm going to find a way to do it. I'll figure it out, because I felt like if I could just get hired a few times, my whole thing I was hanging my hat on was my actual acting talent. That was my trump card. It was my ace in the hole, because I knew I wasn't going to compete just on looks, or certainly not just on physique. But I felt like I can hang with anyone acting talent wise, whether that's true or not. I've been told that too by third-party people, but I always believed it. I feel like I love acting so much, and once I get in a scene, it's it's just like it's me and them, and I never felt like if I do get in a scene with someone, I'm going to be outclassed. I just felt like, because I didn't care about that. I didn't care about people thinking I was a good actor. I only wanted to serve the story, and I wanted to disappear into it. I wanted people to be thinking, what's going to happen next? And even doing plays, I remember if I ever heard someone in the audience go, oh, this guy's good, I would be really depressed, because I'd be like, damn, they're thinking of me as an actor instead of thinking of only the character and what's going to happen next. I'm not doing my job well enough. But if they're just thinking, that son of a gun, he better not hit her, then I'm doing my job.
Job. I gotcha. Yeah. So you're out there.
That's how it should be. It's like a good drummer.
Yeah.
Like they say about when you say a band, oh, that lead guitarist was great. And they go, what do you think about that drummer? And then you think, well, I didn't notice the drummer. It's like, yeah.
That's how good he was.
Pretty amazing, right?
Yeah. So you're there making no money. You're going for these auditions. You're not fitting in yet, right? You're bust out. You got this Chrysler. Was it a convertible? What was this Chrysler? It's just a beat up Chrysler.
And it used to backfire. And everyone thought it was a drive-by shooting every time I drive down the street. I remember specifically because I would go to, what's the name of that? It's just that auto store. It was Manny Mo and Jack. It was, it's out west. Anyway, they had this like lifetime guarantee muffler. So I would go and I would blow it out and I would take it back in. They'd have to replace it. Boom, take it. It was so absurd. Anyway, I ended up coming back to Detroit within like 8-10 months of going out there. And then
were you defeated?
No.
But you're just going to come back to...
I was just like, I miss home. I want to be home. And
yes.
And then I was like, it just so obviously wasn't time for me to be out there.
Right.
I had, then when I got home, that's when I started working in local theaters and doing the thing with Jeff Daniels and all that. And then I started my own theater company with my friends. And that's when I got really empowered because it was like, man, we can make our own content. You know, that before that was a thing.
Right.
And it wasn't really as available to, it was available in the live arena. We could go out and do our own show. And what we used to do is write our own sketch comedy format show. And then we'd go down to the Caju Cafe and we'd say, hey, we'll fill your place up on a Tuesday if you let us do our show here. Like, okay, we're just going to pass a hat, you know. So we did that, and we just sold out everywhere we went. And then the next time I was like, all right, now we can start charging a door fee. And then the third time around, we filled that, and then it was like, all right, now we can actually ask the venue to give us a little bit of money and charge a door fee. And we just always put it back into the show. Then we ended up producing a play and et cetera. So then we did so well with that we all started getting hired away doing theater and stuff, and we couldn't do it anymore. So, and then I just kind of got the pull to go back out, and in the interim I started doing a commercial voiceover in Detroit. So my agent that I was with for commercials and everything here on camera, I did a play with a buddy of mine, Daba Parker. And he's a really good actor in the theater, and does very well with voiceover at the time. And I said, this guy's driving a brand new IROC or whatever it was. Right. Like, he must be making some money doing voiceover because I know what he's making at the theater. We make the same thing.
Right.
He ain't paying for that. So then I'm like, maybe this voiceover thing's something, you know. And I got sent on an audition for a radio commercial for Cartoons Car Stereo Shop.
Okay. Yeah, I remember Cartoons.
And it was like a fast talker. So I just went in, I auditioned, I booked it. And I went to the job, and they're like, all right, Danny, and everyone's standing around, and there's really nerve-wracking, like, oh, we got to get this commercial right. Because the smaller the thing is, the more important it is to those people.
to get it done and get it done.
Yeah, because it's
only got a few bucks.
So they're like, all right, we got 20 seconds to do this copy. So I'm like, oh, they're like, oh, that was 23 seconds. You got to shave 3 seconds off it. Let's take 2. Okay. And I'm, and they're like, that was 17.5, Danny. Okay. You got a little more time. All right. And the third one, great. Perfect. 19.9, 19.7. I don't know how you do that. I don't know how you do that, but I did it. And I was just like, and then the commercial ran, and I was like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. And then I've always been willing to take money and invest it in my career. I invest in myself. So I save up my money, and I said, I'm going to put together a demo reel for voiceover, and I'm going to hire a professional person who does voiceover coaching and all that. And I did that, and I didn't like the way it came out, so I reproduced it myself and paid more money for the studio. And then I had a really, tight demo at the time, and then passed that around, and I ended up getting, some other work, some nice regular work. I was the voice of Bissell vacuum cleaners for a while.
Okay.
So between theater gigs, I would do 2 things. I would do auto shows. So I would go out and be a product specialist and stand there in the suit all day. I'd turn around on the turntable and go, welcome to the 1991 Detroit Auto Show, and the new Honda Accord, blah, blah, blah. And then we'd come down and answer people's questions on the cars. We'd do 10 days in Detroit, 10 days in Chicago, et cetera, and we got paid by the day. And when I was doing Bissell, wherever I was in the country doing auto show, they're like, we got 3 new spots we need to record. Where are you? I'm in Seattle. Okay, we're going to book this studio over there for you. Okay, great. I got to start working auto show at 2 p.m. All right.
So you're the voice of the Bissell commercial.
Yeah, Bissell. We mean clean. That was me. So,
yeah, but that's cool though.
Yeah,
That's
it was
all right.
back in the day. It was a great gig. But
Was Janet calling you saying, "Boy, I just heard the Bissell commercial," or no?
I was calling her, going, "Make sure you record it if you."
But I Channel 4 too.
So I mean, it was the greatest thing because I felt like I'm stealing because I was able to actually double dip. I was actually to make more than one chunk of money on the same day from 2 different sources, and that's when you can start getting ahead a little bit and pay off your. I paid off my student loan like that. So, which back in the day were laughably low compared to now. Like I remember, I was so stressed that I owed like $12,000 to $14,000.
No, it's awful.
It was such a monkey on my back. Now
Now
people are like,
forget
it's
it.
10 times that, right?
Yeah.
So even when I was doing a play in Ireland, hey, got a Bissell spot for you. All right, cool. You're gonna go to such and such studio in Dublin. All
So
right.
how long did you do Bissell for?
For Bissell, I don't know. I must have been doing it for a handful of years. Yeah.
So you're doing Bissell. What other? Let's focus on commercials.
I did KFC.
So what did you do for
It's
KFC?
the crispy strips deal. One of those retail versions, where you're really loud and obnoxious.
It's 1, 2, 3 times the crunch for only $2.99 at KFC. It's the Crispy Strips deal. 3 crunchy crispy strips, mashed potatoes with gravy, and a biscuit for $2.99. Crunch time at KFC. But for $2.99, you'd better hurry.
2 buckets of chicken, biscuits. I did Ford dealers for a while.
Like who'd you do there?
Regional Ford dealers, like
Okay.
Not
Fire with the Cape? None of that?
No, none of that.
A far better deal. Hit me on 4, we make the unaffordable affordable with 11% financing on all 1985 Escorts in stock.
And I only did a couple on-camera commercials back in the day. One of them was for some local cable company. I forgot. I used to hate doing it. And most of the work, a lot of the work in Detroit as an actor, you're trying to take anything you can. A lot of it was industrial films. So you go into Chrysler and start talking about safety on the factory floor.
What?
Yeah.
So the excitement level's not there. No one's clapping for you what you got excited about on the stage at Gallagher.
It's not what you're dreaming about.
Right.
And I had a low tolerance for a lot. Yeah. But a lot of actors were way better at me than me at being excited about having a day's work as an actor. I was never. That was always my problem. Is I was it wasn't like a diva thing. It was just I couldn't get up for it. I couldn't.
The excitement level to walk into
the kind of energy and focus it takes to do. And some of this stuff was super technical stuff. You had to you work on an ear monitor. You had to record your own voice doing the script, and then go. The 12-stroke engine on a 2-part defibrillator. But you're getting in this really long.
Yeah.
And there were guys who were really good at it. I'm it was just never natural. I studied to be an actor in plays and films where there's a scene going on. So I was very much into the artistic pride of that. What I do is art and blah blah blah. I don't have that anymore. But
no, the Kentucky Fried Chicken thing though.
Yeah.
That I like that.
Well,
when you just did that commercial, it made me think about Kentucky Fried, but
Yeah.
they're kind of by the wayside now.
Yeah. So anyway, I always had this idea: voiceover can be a way to supplement my income and to create some revenue streams while I'm doing theater and while I'm trying to break into film. But the long game was, I wanted to be
movie star.
one of these great character actors that's in all this stuff. Working with Spielberg, or if I could get on a really good series like a Law and Order, I knew I would be set for life,
Yeah.
And I was always stressing about money because my dad was always stressing about money because he was trying to feed, 9 people and it was always hand to mouth. So I just took that on. You got to be able to pay your bills. And if you don't have any cushion, you're always going to be in the state of how am I going to pay my bill? And my poor dad was like that. He had all kinds of heart conditions and stuff because of it probably. But anyway, once I moved back and forth to LA from Detroit 3 times. The 3rd time I moved out there was in 2005. And at this point I had pretty extensive voiceover resume. But the industry kind of didn't want me at that. But the second time I went out there, I submitted my demo tape and my resume to the top 5 voiceover agencies, and 2 of them wanted to meet with me and they both wanted to sign me. So I had the choice. Fast forward 6 years later when I went back, I did the same thing, or I called up even the agent that used to represent me. They're like, we're all set. Wish you the best of luck.
Oh,
Because
no.
our roster is set. So if they already have someone that does what you do, and I hadn't established myself in animation yet, so they have no clue that I can do all these voices. They're just thinking of my commercial voice. They're like, we've already got a guy that sounds like that. So
Yeah. So what was your first big voiceover role?
So I have a friend who I went to University of Arizona with, who I was in the acting program with, who was the main animation agent at this big time voiceover agency, and she just kind of she was trying to what we call hip pocketing me. You'd have to get the whole agency on board to sign me, so they couldn't sign me, but she was just keeping me on her radar. And another friend of mine from U of A was a casting director. And she cast me an epic movie. And so they needed someone to parody Borat. In fact, Borat movie didn't even come out when they were casting this movie, but the trailer had come out. And these guys were such big fans of Sacha Baron Cohen and Borat from the Ali G show that they're like, we got to get Borat in our movie. So they started looking for someone to play Borat. They didn't even have any pages or scenes you could do. I had to write my own audition.
Right.
So I did.
For Borat.
I wrote a parody of the Borat movie
Before it came out.
Before the movie came out.
Wow.
So all I could do was write a parody of the trailer of the movie. So I did that, and I had the gray suit, and I did like a tearaway. Actually, what happened was she brought me in on another character first to just. She brought me in to do a parody of Johnny Depp's Captain Jack Sparrow, and I go in on this audition. And in the waiting room, when I go into, I prepare this audition, I do the makeup and where's all the rum? I'm doing my best Johnny Depp, and they loved it. That was hilarious, and they're like, but they were looking for a celebrity for that role, and they ended up, as I'm walking out, Billy Zane is in the waiting room, like auditioning for the same role, and I'm like, Billy Zane. I'm like, this guy was just the second lead in Titanic, the third lead in Titanic. What's he doing auditioning for this silly parody movie, I was like, he's way above this, but that's not the way the industry goes all the time. So anyway, I was just like, they ended up hiring Daryl Hammond from Saturday Night Live because he just does all those impressions. But they hired me as one of the pirates. So I already had a gig in the film. So when the Borat thing came up, she said, you want to come in and audition for Borat? And I was like, well, yeah, but I don't want to lose the role I already got. Like, she was like, no, if you get this one, do you play both roles? And I was like, sign me up.
Perfect.
So then I wrote that whole thing, and I go in there, and she called me later that day that the directors loved it. You're hired. And I'm like, oh, I'm just trying to get work. I'm working at Cheesecake Factory as a server at the time or whatever. So I was just so happy. It was like my first studio movie that I ever did. And it was Borat, and Borat took off. So I kept getting hired back to do extra shooting, and they wanted to do all this promo stuff, and I ended up being on the poster, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so because of that, one day in the voiceover agency that my friend worked at, someone's walking through the hall. We need someone to voice match Sacha Baron Cohen. And my friend Tanya says, we have him. He's our client. Who? Danny Jacobs. Well, bring him in. Call him in. They call me in to voice match him for this other thing, and I get that, and I book it. So now I'm on the radar, finally, at this voiceover place. So things are finally starting to heat up a little bit, and you're trying to maximize the potential of any of this possible, you're sending out postcards. I'm on the poster of this movie coming out, and then the movie comes out, and it is what it is. It's not great art. But you're just going, hey, you're just trying to get this.
Get yourself out there. Yeah, for sure.
Grabbing you.
So a couple months after I booked that other thing, the voiceover thing as Sacha Baron Cohen, all of a sudden DreamWorks calls, and they're looking for someone to voice match Sacha Baron Cohen to be King Julien for the initial recording for Madagascar 2. Now, I was living in Detroit when Madagascar 1 came out, and I took my little nieces and nephews to see it. And I remember sitting there going, because I have this, I can hear, I'm like, that's Bryan Cranston, that's Gene Hackman, that's Julia Roberts. As I play this little game, and then I look at the credits, and I'm almost always right, But I'm like, who is doing King Julien? Whose voice is that? It's so funny and so unique. And I stay for the credits, and I see the name, and it doesn't ring a bell. Fast forward all these years later, now I'm voice matching, and then my buddy introduces me to the Ali G show on which he's doing all these characters. So by the time I got the audition to be his voice match on Madagascar 2, because this happens a lot of times. Big time celebrities are not available to do the initial recording. Right. They're off doing another project. But the animation needs to get going, and the animators take their inspiration from the vocal performance, from the voice performance a lot of times. So,
is that right?
Yeah. So
makes sense.
Back in the day, they used to animate first, and then you'd have to come in and sync up doing lip flaps. That still happens sometimes. There are shows that are storyboarded, and then sometimes you're dubbing shows that are coming in that are anime or whatever. But most of the shows I've worked on, it's a script. You go in there, there's drawings of the characters maybe, and it's a script. So you're going to record that first, and you're going to do it like a live.
But you're not seeing anything.
Not seeing anything.
You don't even know the speed of what you're supposed to go. Or...
No, it's the opposite. They're seeing you. A lot of times they have cameras on you while you're recording because they're going to basically use your own facial expressions
for the character,
for the animators to
really.
So
ideas, it's almost it's in reverse. Though.
In DreamWorks, yeah. For DreamWorks, they had these little lipstick cameras right on the mic stand, and that's why when you see some of those movies, the characters end up looking and kind of have the same facial expressions.
Resemblance of the character.
Resemblance and the facial expressions, yeah.
Really? I never thought of that.
And then it inspires them they might write a scene. It's a very important part of the process. So they take it very seriously when they hire someone to do a scratch track to voice match someone, even though they know Sasha's going to come in and do it after the fact. The person who comes in and does it first, very important.
So you're at a studio when you do that?
Yeah. So, what happened was when I auditioned for it, it was at my own agency. And I'm there. And I'm recording with the booth director of my agency, and then we send it in via email, and then they listen to it and they pick. So they liked what I was doing. They actually brought me in to DreamWorks. So now all of a sudden, 3 years removed from watching Madagascar with my nieces and nephews in Detroit, I'm in Glendale on DreamWorks campus in their studio with the creators of the film. And, they're telling me, it's great, but it's just like, it's a little too metered, it's a little too measured. So something that wasn't working. And thank God there was a sound engineer who worked at DreamWorks who thought to burn me a CD of Sacha Baron Cohen's outtakes from the first movie.
That helped a lot.
Me that. And I grabbed that. I'm like, thanks, man. On the way home, it's in my car and I'm listening to it. And I'm going, okay. So he's doing the line, and then he's like improvising for like 4 minutes, going off, stream of consciousness, nonsense, hilarious. Some of it was no way it could be used. It was way too blue, the material. But it gave me a sense. It's like, okay, they want me to unhinge this guy. They want him to be unpredictable. They want me to improvise. Okay, let's do that. So the next time I went in, I did that. I would do the line, and then I would go, because that last time, I'm just like, throwing in all this crazy stuff.
And this is for Madagascar 2.
Yeah, Madagascar 2. And they're just cracking up, and they're like, that first session, they're like, now you got it. And I was like, okay. Phew. So I did scratch for Madagascar 2, and that was great because there were some really cool moments where I got to create some stuff. There's a scene where Melman, the giraffe,
of course,
is in the dying pits because he's so depressed, he thinks he's going to die. And Julian and Maurice come up and they're like, what is this sad little head, And they're trying to cheer him up. You think it's because he's being nice to Melman, but he actually just wants him to get out of there because he wants to claim the land.
Yeah.
Right. Well, the way it was written, it was just like, I just kept hearing this like old gospel tent revival type of stuff. So it would say, the line would say, you have to rise up. You have to rise up and get out of these pits or whatever. And so I just started doing like, you got to rise up. You got to get up and take your, I started doing like this revival stuff. And they loved it and they ran with it. And they kind of rewrote the scene according to that. And then they had Maurice do the call and response. So King Julien said, you got to rise up. And Maurice was like, rise up, and they put music underneath it, all that stuff. And
woof, woof. You are a real player, you know that? Now listen to me. You got to rise up. You hearing me?
Yeah, I don't think you heard you.
I can't hear you.
Yeah.
Good. You got to rise.
Rising up. Yeah.
You got to get out of the hole.
I'm rising up out of the ground.
He's rising, Maurice.
I'm rising.
So when I went to the theater to see it, I was just sitting there like, this is so cool because I always wanted to be like just a collaborator.
Yeah.
And that's how they treated me. They're like, Tom McGrath and I'm gonna kill myself. The other Eric, the other director, they just treated me like you're a part of the DreamWorks team, like we are. So let's create this thing together. And when someone treats you that way, you have this freedom, and then everything just flows. I've been in much more small time stuff. You know, like I said, when I was doing that Cartoons Car Stereo, it was a bunch of people standing on, well, we don't know. And then, you know, it was a $200 job, you know.
Now you're over here.
Now
This is
I'm on
huge.
a $160 million movie. And they're telling me, just do what you do, man. It's great. Do what you do.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, that was an eye opener because people who really, and that's where the humility comes in. Like a good artistic collaborator who's confident in themselves, they're not picky about where a good idea comes from, and they're not afraid to give you credit for it. But the people with a small time attitude, they always have to try and take credit for everything, and it's a whole thing. But the people who, like, you know, and you always hear these stories when the actors get interviewed. It's like when Spielberg says, you know, when Tom Hanks works with Spielberg the first time, and Spielberg's going to him going, how do you think we should shoot this scene? And the first time Tom Hanks is like, me? Like, you're Steven Spielberg. What are you asking me? But he didn't. He's like, well, I see it like this, you know. And then and Scorsese and all those guys, they understand that everyone around you, it doesn't matter if it's a grip or, you know, or another
They're all
actor,
important.
They all have something to
a team.
contribute. And sometimes if you're open to that, that's where the magic happens. And too many people don't understand that about, you know, film is really the most collaborative art because you have so many elements coming together. You know, you can't do it on your own. You need the costume department. You need the props department. You need the lighting department.
It's a lot going on.
That's why, you know, there's an old interview of what's his name? Orson Welles. When he directed Citizen Kane, he was like 26 and he didn't know anything about filmmaking. And thankfully he didn't think he needed to know anything. And they were having a hard time finding a cinematographer that wanted to work with him. But there was a guy who did want to work with him because he had no experience.
Yeah.
And the cinematographer, everything you need to know, I can teach you in one day. Here, let's sit down. And he did. And Orson Welles said, it's true. Like, I mean, I'm not taking anything away from what a director brings to a project. But there are technical aspects. A director is an executive. He's being brought choices all day. He's responsible for the vision, pulling the vision together. He doesn't have to know everything there is to know about lighting. It's helpful if he does know a lot about it, but if he has the right people around him and he trusts them, how should we light the scene? I want it to look like this. I want this mood to come out. I want it to evoke this type of feeling. They'll tell you how to light it, and if you trust them, and it works, and you're just like, yes. And costume director brings you 3 shirts, and you're like, that one. And the prop master brings you 3 different guns, and like, it would be that one. So it's this constant collaboration, and those people who are bringing the choices are, you know, just as important. It's the director. There has to be one director that pulls it all together.
Right.
But it's super collaborative, and you know.
How long did it take to do something like that? When you did just that show, let's just say. How long were you a part of doing that?
Which one?
Madagascar.
The movie was, you know, it's a few sessions because there's not a ton of lines. I probably went in for maybe 5 or 6 sessions.
Okay.
And then once they lay that down and the scenes are set, Sasha comes in and re-records it. Replaces what I did with his voice.
Right.
But then when I got hired, right after I did that, now all of a sudden Nickelodeon is looking to do a series based on Penguins of Madagascar, and Julian is in it, King Julian's in it. And it was kind of my job to lose at that point, which thankfully I didn't lose. And then now we're doing 82 episodes. And Julian's in almost all the episodes. So now we're talking about 3 years of going into the studio once a week.
And recording. So did you do all the soundtracks for all that too? Or no?
Now I did the soundtrack for Madagascar 3.
Got it.
Because Julian actually sang in that soundtrack.
Yeah.
And Sasha did record them, but he didn't want to be I don't know if it was part of his contract or he just didn't want to be on the soundtrack or whatever happened there. Something happened at the last minute because they called me in like the day before they're supposed to turn in the soundtrack.
Oh.
And they're like, hey, can you come in and do the soundtrack? And I'm like, what? You know. So we're trying to negotiate that. And initially I was told it was 2 tracks, and I get to the studio and it's 4 tracks, and did all this improvising and all that. So yeah, I'm on soundtrack for that now.
That's cool.
For Madagascar 3, yeah. And then there's all these ancillary things like video games, and I was on a cruise ship for a while. There's a big Madagascar themed aquatic show on the back of one of these giant cruise ships. I had a friend who went on the first maiden voyage of that ship.
Yeah.
And she was posting something on her blog about how she's trying to train for a 5K or something, and she ran into a hippo and a giraffe and I was like, are you on a ship called such and such of the seas? Yeah. And is there a show about Madagascar on the back of that boat, Aquatics? Yeah. I was like, do you know that you're on a cruise right now that is the only ship in the world that has my voice on it? It was so bizarre.
Really?
Yeah. And there were theme park things. There was a Madagascar themed. There's a theme park in Singapore somewhere that's like a DreamWorks.
And your voice
is
is there.
DreamWorks, so I'm Julian in that. And yeah, we did Christmas special, we did a Valentine's special. So it's the gift that keeps giving. We haven't done anything in a while though. I'm hoping that they find
Do
a new
something.
series for him, but because All Hail King Julian was very successful. We won a ton.
Such a
of Emmys.
great character.
We did 6 seasons of that, and that was a special time because that's when the streaming services were all trying to get original content. And DreamWorks and Netflix at the time, I think it's still the biggest deal that was ever done for original content. I don't know how many hundreds of millions of dollars for like many hours of original content. And All Hail King Julian was one of the flagship shows of that deal. So we were lucky because they did a deal for 6 seasons, and nowadays they don't do 6 seasons. They'll do 1 or 2, and then
see if you're good enough. Yeah. So do you have a favorite line or scene from King Julian?
I mean, there's so many.
Yeah.
Once we did All Hail King Julian and Penguins of Madagascar, there are a couple scenes that usually it involves like an inside joke.
Yeah.
I used to always do my Richard Dreyfuss impression. So I met Richard Dreyfuss at the auto show in Los Angeles, and I was doing, I was talking about this electric vehicle that came out, and when you're doing it in LA, there's a lot of celebrities. So he came up, and I was talking to this group of people, and he was sitting there very, very interested in what I was saying, and then he waits for the group to disperse there. And he comes up and he has these very pointed questions. You know, is this a 100% electric vehicle? And when does it do and out? And I said, and then he pulled out his business card and he said, have someone call me if they're interested in having me be a spokesperson in exchange for one of the vehicles. I said, okay, Mr. Dreyfuss. And I took his card and I passed it along. 2 years later, he was the voice of Honda.
Really?
He ended up getting the EV vehicle.
Right.
But 2 years later, Honda, the new Honda, Simplify. And it was him. And then they would come, the Honda people would come the next year at the auto show and they're like, hey, do your Richard Dreyfuss impression. I'm like, why you guys just hire me? You spend millions on
With him, I could give you the same voice. Did you give him the voice in front of him?
No, I didn't. I just took it all in. I was hoping that I would meet him later or work with him at some point, but it never happened. But he his performance in Jaws and also in Close Encounters is like crazy. So I did this character on Penguins of Madagascar that was Roy the Rhino. So I kind of used Richard as a base. He was Roy the Rhino. He was always annoyed. Don't make me ram you.
Hey! What are you doing?
Hey, you moved. You ruined the picture.
The picture?
Yeah, I tagged you with a rude drawing and permanent marker. It's great.
You what?
Yeah, I call it Bud Feety.
You are going to pay for this, lemur!
And so one time they wrote
It was based upon him.
They wrote in a scene where Roy the Rhino gets interrogated just like Dreyfuss does in Close Encounters.
Who are you people? I want to lodge a complaint. You have no right to make people crazy.
So it's like, who are you people? I'm going to lodge a complaint. So I got
So
to
he knew he had to see this, right?
I don't know if he saw it.
Yeah.
But we're constantly doing it. In animation, we're constantly working that kind of stuff in.
Stuff that like people
awesome.
like if you don't know, you would have no idea.
It's more of an inside joke,
Right.
Inside joke that really cracks us up. So that was one of them. We did one where I had a death scene, and
This is great.
King Julien was dying, and I just thought my mind went to Peter Sellers in The Party, the beginning of the movie The Party. If you've never seen it, it's an outrageous movie. It's like just an outrageous comedy.
He was good. So much fun.
He was.
to watch his show.
I think he was influential on Sacha Baron Cohen / King Julien voice in some ways, and I always have associated him tangentially there. And so when I did this death scene, I basically did what Peter Sellers did in The Party, which is he won't die. He gets fired off of a movie. He's an actor, and he's an East Indian actor on an American movie that they bring over, and he's like calling the troops, you know, and then he gets shot. He's just supposed to go down, and then he goes down, and he's like, he gets back up again. He gets shot again, and then he still won't die. So then, like, they all just keep shooting him, and he keeps getting back up. And I did that with Julian in one of these scenes, and it was just, and they, to my delight, they kept it, even though, you know, they're 11-minute episodes. So anytime you drag something out, they're like, Danny, can you speed it up a bit? It's only an 11-minute episode. You're in Act 3 of your little scene there. But they let me keep it, and they kept it in there. So that's the kind of stuff I get a kick out of, you know. And we did, like, on All Hail King Julien, while we were filming it, was right around the time that David Bowie passed away, I think. And no, I don't think he had passed away. I think I posted it later, but we were doing this scene where Julian is trying to travel to the moon, and he thinks he has gone into space. And so I just improvised this line. I'm like, I'm stepping through the door, and I'm floating in a most peculiar way. Zero gravity right now. I'm floating in a most peculiar way. You know, like the song. And
just like the song.
Yeah.
I'm stepping through the door, and I'm floating in a most peculiar way.
And they kept it. So then I crack up at that. And then later on, when David Bowie ended up passing it, I took that clip and I said, you know, R.I.P. David Bowie, is a little tip of the hat to him, you know, because
yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, that
is cool.
That kind of stuff. And then just being in the room for these.
None of it's a part of what you're doing. It's just you being creative, right? I mean, really.
Yeah, I mean, we have great writers, so we don't have to improvise a lot, but they like when we do. So the way we approach it is we do the scene as written, we bring as much to it as we can, leaving it as written. Then once we've got that captured, if we have another idea, we'll slip it in on the second, third take, and if they like it better, they'll keep it. You know, everyone, we like to do group records as much as possible, so you're in the same studio with these amazing actors, and the hard part is not cracking up and ruining the take. You know,
that'd be so hard.
You know, so sometimes
that would be tough.
You don't always pull it off. Sometimes you do. You just ruin the take. You know? But yeah, working with all those people, Kevin Michael Richardson and Jeff Bennett and John DiMaggio and India de Beaufort and all those people, great people. I got to work with Henry Winkler a lot. He played my uncle. Really gracious, down to earth guy, you know, and he was just a delight to work with. And yeah, just so many people. Some people I didn't get to work with that, like I didn't get to work with what's her name? Angelica Houston, who played my mother in All Hail King Julien.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I was like, man, I think she's an Academy Award winning actress.
You didn't have an opportunity to meet her, though.
No, because we didn't get to record on the same days. You know, she wasn't available or whatever it was. But
you worked with a lot of people.
Yeah, a lot of people. Dave Keckner, and worked with John Heder from Napoleon Dynamite, and
right,
just a ton of people. Wayne, what's his name? Who played? Who was on Seinfeld? He was.
George?
Not George. The neighbor, the other neighbor. Hello, Newman.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Hello, Newman. Hello, Jerry.
Hey,
Wayne. He came and guested on our show. He was great to work with. So many of these people come in and they work. You know, just it's always a good time because in the voiceover world, there's no egos. They're really there's egos, but they're only healthy enough to get people through the work. They're never like, there's no divas. They're just, everyone's too good and you're too replaceable.
Yeah.
To ever think that you can like have attitude and keep getting hired.
So in all the shows that you've done, like I was reading, there's a ton. There's the Ninja Turtles. You did.
Yeah, I did. Some of them are guest spots. You know, the shows I was regulars on were the ones we've mentioned, and also Miles from Tomorrowland. That was on Disney Junior. Kick Buttowski, I had recurring.
We used to watch that all the time.
Yeah, I was Rowdy Remington. This kid's gonna be big. He was like this crazy Russian dude.
Hello, I am Rowdy Remington. You, boy in helmet. You just exactly what I am looking for. I am needing halfway entertainment for my newest purchase, the Mellowbrook Arena Footballing Club.
What else? I had recurring various roles on Animaniacs and also Apple and Onion on Cartoon Network. You know, tons of other stuff that I'm probably not thinking of. Right now I'm doing some stuff for Krapopolis, which is a Fox primetime animation. Fox. It's Sunday nights on Fox. But yeah, video games and
something with Call of Duty. Did you do a voice in that?
I did Call of Duty Modern Warfare. I played a couple minor roles in that. I played Ant-Man in the Avengers video game.
That's cool.
Yeah, that was cool. That was cool working on a giant Marvel project like that. And that was full body mocap for a couple of days. So that felt like being back in the theater because you actually look at the other actor. You're not reading it off the page. You have to memorize your lines. But you're also wearing this giant helmet with cameras and microphones on it.
So then out of all of those, what's your favorite? Julian?
Yeah, I had to say Julian.
Yeah.
You know. But I also like when I get to play multiple roles, like on Animaniacs and Krapopolis, where I can play like 3 characters. And but yeah, Julian's hard to replace because he paid my bills for quite a while. But he's also incredibly fun to play because he's just so unhinged.
Right, and a lot of it is your creativity.
Yeah,
sounds like you
bring
whatever element you want to it.
To what I can bring there. There's never like a hey, tone it down, Danny.
Right. Yeah.
You know.
Do you do a lot of voices of people like you just did with Dreyfus? Do you do a ton of people like that too?
I do impressions, but I don't.
Did you practice those? Was that for comedy? Was that just to do it for fun?
Well, this kind of folds back into what I was saying. Without knowing it, when I was growing up, without trying to, I just always naturally tried to emulate the voice I was hearing with music. So if Stevie Wonder was singing, I was trying to sound like Stevie Wonder. If it was John Lennon, I was trying to sound like John Lennon.
Just growing up,
I'm always listening to the music, and if I'm going to sing, when I sing the music back, I just naturally would.
You sound like Stevie Wonder.
I wasn't just trying to match the tone. For some reason, I'm also trying to match
the voice,
the resonance, and the voice, and the accent, and all those things. It was never something I was even aware of. But when I started doing animation voiceover, and I look back, like, why was I perfect for this? It's because I was honing all those skills without even knowing it. I mean, when I got older and became an actor, I was like, well, I think I have a natural ear for accents. I have a natural ear for pitch. I can sing, and I can change my voice. And my whole family are master impersonators because we used to imitate our aunts and uncles and cousins a lot of times.
Love it.
Just goofing around. But they're spot on. Like when I hear my brothers and sisters do their impressions,
like the Bronx stuff.
I'm like, any of them could have done what I'm doing.
Yeah.
They're all really good.
Really?
And
so you guys
there's
are
just
that fun
ear.
with that.
If you have them, there's a couple elements of it. If you have you have to have the kind of the ear for how it sounds, but then you have to have the ability to manipulate your own voice to match it. So there's kind of those two elements. A lot of people will have the ability to hear what's going on. That's why they can sing and match pitch. They can sing a song and be on key, but they don't have the ability necessarily to manipulate the soft tissue in their throat, etc., to sound like someone else sounds while they're singing.
So now you're back here in Detroit. Are you you're doing voiceovers, right?
Yeah, I'm still doing.
So do
the
you have to
same
go
thing.
back to LA, or do you do it from here? Or
No,
how does that work
most of
now?
it's all remote now. I have a home studio.
And it's what you do for a living.
Yeah, that's what I do. I mean, it's I'm really interested in the health space these days because I've had some health struggles and I've had to work my way through that, and so my interest lies in things like nutrition that's specific to people's genetic mutations.
Okay.
So I've had to go down to that rabbit hole, and also hormones and things like that. So the endocrine system. So I had I was diagnosed with a tumor of my pituitary gland in my brain cavity in 2021. Had surgery to remove it in February of 2022, and then it was just like I couldn't work for a long time because I was recovering from the surgery. They go in through your nose, so
good God,
they have to go through. They go in one nostril with the camera and the other nostril with the instruments, and they cut through the back of your sinus cavity and they drill through your skull base, and then they're trying to remove a tumor that's the size of a grape that's growing out of a gland that's the size of a pea without damaging it. So it's miraculous. So they got it all out and it was benign. Most of them are benign. And but then it's like you're waiting to see, well, is your pituitary going to be able to function normally? You might have to do some hormone replacement, and et cetera. So after going through the surgery and kind of not working for a while and getting hit with the medical bills, it's like, you know what? I don't think I want to be in Arizona. I want to be closer to my family and friends now. Time to go back to Michigan. So I came back about a year and a half ago. And so I'm here now. But with the voiceover stuff, now that I'm, kind of back to normal, most of it after COVID's done remote anyway. That's why I moved to Arizona, because it's like the lockdowns happened. We didn't record anything for like 3 weeks. And then very quickly the studios were like, who has home studios? We want to keep stuff going. And then, I had mine already set up anyway, because that's how I do auditions. And once I started doing that, I was like, if I can record from a closet in Orange County in an apartment, maybe now's. I wanted to move to Sedona for 10 years because I was going there on vacations and loving it. And I kept trying to figure out, how can I move to Sedona but still work in LA? And I kind of saw that as my opportunity. So I moved to the Sedona area, and I had my home studio set up there, and I was working remotely from there. And now I have the same setup here,
So you guys are set up at your house.
Yeah.
So you can do everything that's needed.
Yeah.
You set yourself up nice.
I mean, all you need a really good soundproof environment so that you're rejecting all the out exterior noise, and then you need to have a dead room, so it needs to be padded down so there's no reverb or bounce, and you need to have it quiet to minus 60 decibels, and then you need to have a hardwired good internet connection, and then all microphone and stuff like that, which I already had. And if you have all that, you can record anything, anywhere, anytime anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
And it's studio quality. So.
And now you obviously you have your agent, but people, they already know you, and you've already got a proven track record.
Right.
You're really good at what you do, right? And
thank you.
You are. It was just really cool to just even sit here and see you do that. I was wondering how today would go, and it's funny because you say you gotta have the decibels. Shit, we're in the RV, and it's a tin can. We're on the side of a road, and people are driving by beeping. And then later on, we check our phones. It's like, hey, we drove by, saw you guys.
Yeah.
Were you doing a podcast in there? It's like,
They ruin everything.
I might be able.
We're like, what the shit?
I might be able to give you guys a couple tips that you can use to clean up your audio even more. But
yeah, well, this is what had. We can talk about that. But we had, I had just bought a microphone as more of just to look like.
Just like a prop.
A prop.
Yeah.
But it worked. But I just couldn't get it right. And what I was doing during COVID is I like to talk to people. And I like to be out there. It doesn't have to be strictly construction. I've been involved in a million things in my life, but I like to have interaction with people.
Yeah.
So I would be upstairs. We're all cooped up in this giant, right? And I would start yelling, I'm going live. And Tiny would get pissed. And these guys were all set up with all these video games going on. And I would come down here, turn on the lights, and go live. Well, what had happened is that when I was doing that, people would jump on, and then I remember everything since like birth. So when if I got a memory of you when we're 10 years old, I would throw it out to you, and you were like, "Holy shit, Roger! I can't believe you remember that. And then, so now everybody's on. So John Orlando said to me one night, he goes, Roger, I was checking your, what's going on, and the people are stopping and they're watching you on Facebook. It's unheard of, bro. They're just staying. They're not leaving. Mm-hmm. So because you're captivating your audience and you don't even know it, and I didn't know that. I was just rattling off.
Got that personal charisma.
But I'm stuck. Thanks, but I was stuck in this COVID world, and then, like I say, he saw what was happening, and then he says, "Hey, let's do this together." So we started, and then he liked it. Then when Roger saw it in Vegas, when he saw these young guys doing well, it was like a light for him. Well, then when John brought him back, what had happened is John with Raj was like, we'll train you to do podcasts. Well, then they had a big implosion, and Roger's sitting there and he goes, okay. So Roger started doing the shows, and these guys have got like Casey Kasem's daughter, right?
Oh,
so
okay.
Right? What's her name? Roger?
Carrie Kasem.
Carrie Kasem.
Yeah, Carrie. Yeah.
She does a show out of
So
there.
I engineered a couple shows for her.
Yeah.
And
she's a good friend of mine, Rick Hoffman. He's a actor on Suits, that show Suits.
Oh yeah.
He used to hang out with her back in the day, and I remember that because one of my things on my original demo was an impression of Casey Kasem.
Starting off tonight's list at number 10. 10. Moving into single digits now at number 9, it's 9.
Really?
And she played it. It was a stupid parody that I did. It was like and moving all the way up to number 4 in the charts this week, it's Doo-Doo Brown from 2 Live Crew. Or something like that. And Rick sent that to Casey. And
no way!
They loved it and got a kick out of it. And I was just like, so cool to connect because Casey was one of my sort of guys that I looked to for inspiration because he was the voice of Shaggy on Scooby-Doo.
Was he really? I didn't know that either. Yeah. I did not know that.
Zoink Scoob! Head for cover! Like now!
It was him?
That's Casey Kasem.
It's him! It's the Winky Dinky! Like, why aren't your legs moving, man? Run!
And Casey Kasem went to Wayne State.
I knew he went to Wayne State.
And he was also, I think, is he Lebanese too?
Yeah.
There was a bunch of things that intersected. I'm like, this is a dude from Detroit who's Lebanese, who had this amazing career as a spokesperson, but also he had this hidden kind of really cool career as a voice actor.
When he was standing there with her in Vegas, I said, can I talk to her real quick? And he's going, oh man, he's just, I know, okay, yeah. So she gets on the phone with me and John Orlando, and I says, I want to tell you something. And he says, oh, what's going on? I said, well, when your dad was here, when your grandmother was sick at the hospital, before she passed, my aunt was in charge of that unit. And my aunt went in there, and your grandmother passed. You were there as a little girl, and she met you. And but Casey Kasem told my aunt, he said, if you ever come to Hollywood, call me. I'd like to have you by my house. We'll have coffee or tea or whatever. And my wife and so my aunt was out there for whatever she was out there for, and she thought, well, shit, I'm just gonna call. Why not? And she called. And he goes, well, come over. He was just thrilled that she was a part of the people that helped take care of her.
Yeah, that's great.
And this young lady on the phone, she couldn't even believe the story. And she was, I think I know who your aunt may be. And I said, yeah. I said, it's a true story. I said, it was downtown Detroit. But they're all from here.
Right.
And my God, he was huge. That guy was the voice of, I mean,
yeah.
that top 40. I mean, you made that. That was huge, right?
America's Top 40. Yeah, every week we'd watch that on Saturday morning. That
it was a big deal.
It was a big deal. Yeah.
Things are so much different today, but so yeah, I didn't know that he was the voice. So, but I guess where I was going with it is all of a sudden he's got this newfound love for all this, and we're trying to better it. And it's two things. It's when you go to buy these microphones, and when you go to buy different, it's crazy. It gets to be crazy.
Yeah, you have to become a whole other expert in a whole other field too, like to sift through some of it.
And our videoing, what I found was really interesting is we got my son Ben just walked by the window with his buddy. So his buddy will come, he'll bring their camera. Everybody's got their videos and their cameras, and they're filming with their phones, and we're just driving down the road. But we go back and he looks at all that, right? Mm-hmm. And our ride now, to me, is this dog was next to us barking, right? I'm looking out the window going, get that. Get that dog barking. People
B-roll,
love dogs.
baby.
So this
Yeah.
Eagle's barking, right? We're on our way downtown to meet the power slap guy. And but that scene to me was hilarious. It's like, what is this dog yelling at us for? Because we get people that are waving, hey, run through that, you know, and they're screaming. And it seems like every week it's gaining speed.
100%. Yeah.
And like, so some of the young kids told Christian, he said, hey, you see that guy in the crowd? And Christian's like, that guy right there? This was just 2 nights ago at a soccer game. And Christian goes, that's my dad, Roger. He goes, yeah, I saw him on TikTok. But that's all because of him. Mm-hmm. He's taken it to another level. But I love to talk, and I have contacts all over the country. I just want to bring more people on, more interesting people, and because I have fun with it. Yeah. To me, if I can make money at this, not the lazy side of it, I'm talking about having some fun. We jump in an RV, we go out, we don't know what the hell we're going to encounter. You know, when we're driving in that RV, it broke down one day. We're heading out to Grand Rapids. We didn't even make it down Grossbeck. We're right here at 14 Mile, broken down. And I'm going, and there's a video of me, I'm going, well, shit, man. I mean, I don't even know how to change the oil in these things, right? So what am I going to do? So we get it fixed, and then one of the kids, we had a bunch of kids with us. We were all going to Grand Rapids for this power slap guy. And anyway, long story short, I want to do as much as I can do in this region. Like, I don't mind. We go to Vegas. We'll go places. We'll interview people. I love it. But I like to bring on that local deal because I think that it's big, right? People don't realize who's really here. There's a lot of people just in this area.
Oh, yeah. And everyone has a story. Like, it's not about celebrities or anything like that. If you ask the right questions, you could
100%.
Just do this and pick any person off any street.
Yeah.
If you ask them the right questions, you're going to hear a really compelling.
We were going to get our garbage guys on. We still have to do that. There's garbage guys.
If I had a podcast, I'd be like, everyone has a compelling story or something like that, and just randomly select.
Just talk to random people.
Ordinarily be on. Because now, you know, sometimes you see the same people now coming up again and again. It's like, all right.
It's like, we've heard your story, like, we're done. So, do you know Theo Von? He's a comedian.
Yeah.
So his podcast, he does big famous celebrities and stuff, but he'll also do
like interview Trump or something.
Yeah, he did.
Really great. My son's a big fan of yours, Baron.
Really, Baron is?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
he just graduated high school, right?
That's right. He just did. He knows you very well. He said, Dad, he's big.
Wow.
Yeah, big one.
He's like, dude, he's Bernie Sanders.
Yeah, and Bernie Sanders. He does all sorts of people, but he also does like your random everyday person.
Yeah.
So like the one he did like a carny.
The carny.
It was just a guy who did the carnival, and then he did like a police officer, just a underwater scuba dive, just random people, and those are the best ones because you don't know that person's stories, and you haven't heard them before either. It's something new and fresh, and those are fun.
And the garbage guy just saved somebody's life. There was a fire here in Mount Clemens. So I said to him, we were talking about the garbage guys, and I says, I'm going to ask this guy, and because I used to be partners with garbage guys years ago when we were younger. But anyway, long story short, I was like, so I asked the guy, I said, hey man, who's the guy that saved that lady's life across, Gratiot? He says, it was me. I says, well, come on, get out of the car. So he's working. I shouldn't be telling on the guy, but he jumps out. I show him in the podcast. He says, oh my God, you got to do the podcast. I says, yeah, come on. Get your guys. I know there was a couple of you. It was so bizarre because the house burned down. She called me to remodel it. So I got her too. So I'm like, let's bring everybody in and,
tell a story.
There's a story here, and it would be fun, but I don't know if they're nervous. I don't know.
We'll figure it out.
We'll get him.
We'll call
but it's like we had a singer, a rapper, Hush on, and he was local, and he did some big stuff. And over the years, video games and some things, right? Some music and Contender Series. But anyway, who's one person that you have that we can give a call and maybe do something with? So he's thinking about what he wants, how we're going to do that. Another rapper locally wrote a song like 25 years ago, and somebody just used bits and pieces of that song. They had to write him a big check. This guy didn't really make great money, and now he did.
That's great.
So, and we're sitting here with
That's
you.
Like those auto-tune the news guys.
Yeah.
Guys. And all those people that they auto-tuned made money off of it. And they needed it, probably.
And they needed it.
For sure. Yeah.
So, in Gallagher, do you remember Duke? Abdul Fakir? Yeah. So, I had called him.
He was a year younger or two than, or was he a year ago?
He was one above us.
Yeah, so he was between you and I.
So he was 88.
But yeah, I remember I think he was pretty good friends with Daryl Jackson.
Yes.
And yeah, so I saw Mr. Fakir a couple times around Gallagher. You know, he was around the practices and stuff like that.
It was cool because
I remember. Well, when I was a freshman, I think Levi Stubbs Jr. was at Gallagher too. So,
yes.
So I think I may have seen Mr. Stubbs come through there too once or twice.
Yeah, you've said that your
Levi
football
was on the basketball team.
I remember one specific game, and it must have been against De La Salle. In my mind, for whatever reason, it was De La Salle. Because I know that there was another, one of the tops or temps son with De La Salle too. And I got to ask Abdul. But I remember the four tops and the temps were there. Like all of them. And I remember being there as a young kid because I used to go see these guys with my dad at the Premier Center.
Yeah.
Back in the 80s. So I'm looking, I go, holy shit, they're all here. And it had to be LaSalle. I know for sure it was. And I'm still today good friends with them. We talk all the time. And I called him about 4 months ago and I said, hey, you guys got this show. My sons love the music. I want to bring my boys and it would be special for my dad. And he says, Raj, come on down. I'll bring you backstage, meet everybody. But his dad had gotten sick just before he passed. Ooh. And I wanted him to be able to meet him, and he was unable to because he had a procedure.
Yeah, that day.
But Abdul, in that industry, like before the show, in front of all the crowd, they said that he's a big part, meaning our agent, right? Mm-hmm. He's a big part and integral in what's going on there, and there's so many hits and songs that those guys have done over the years. That now what they're doing is just plugging in some new younger guys from the musicals out of New York.
They take all the Broadway guys.
And they can continue. And their sound shows up.
Yeah,
it shows.
Yeah. Well, Mr. Fakir was one of the guys he was like the longest tenured, wasn't he?
Yes.
Yes. Yes, he was the last one.
And etc.
Yeah, so he was the last. He was the last one.
Recognizable because he just looked so cool.
Yeah.
With those glasses.
He had the glasses. Yeah. Yeah, no, that was a good show.
And I invited him to our last reunion. I should come see if he'll come to this one. He came 10 years ago. Abdul showed up. And but yeah, I mean, just right there, just at Gallagher.
But I got to tell you this really funny story right quick. Because you mentioned the old house that we grew up in on Whittier.
Yes.
So fast forward, I don't know how long ago. So I just heard this story. I can't remember who told me. Maybe it was Daryl that told me, but or Darren. I guess, all right, Daryl Jackson, now he has a daughter, I think, or a son. And he had to give them a ride to their date's house. Something like that.
Okay.
And so he gets to the house, and it's our old house.
Really?
Yeah.
For real?
Yeah, it's our old house on Whittier.
He's thinking, what the hell?
He's like, this is crazy.
You still talk with him a lot?
I see Darren on Facebook. I got to get together with Darren, but Daryl I haven't seen in a long time just because, I mean, I hear about him like when I talk to Darren or whatever, but yeah, I haven't seen Daryl in a while.
Those guys, I got along with him and Abdul.
Oh, everybody got along with him.
And there was a couple of guys that might have been in your grade. One guy was a real big guy, good looking. Can't think of his. I got to go check the yearbook. I know he was in your grade. He was cool to me. And Kevin Kirkendall was really cool to me. Hung around with Daryl all the time. And I saw all those guys. I was at was it B's or Bay's Comedy Club? Do you remember that in Detroit? Mm-mm. Was pretty much, I mean, I'll just call it what it was. It was an all-black comedy club.
Yeah.
And I went down there. There was 4 of us white people. And these black guys, when they saw me up front, they reamed me for the next 2 hours. Every comedian.
As they should.
Right. And I remember... the whole Gallagher gang looked over, and it was Kevin Kirkendall, and he says, Roger! And I looked over and said, what are you doing? And I said, I'm having the time of my life. And he thought it was just awesome that I wasn't offended. We were in tears. They tore us up like there was no tomorrow. And the blacks were going crazy, but all the Gallagher guys, man, they come over, they're hugging me. And
we should probably do a part 2 because I got
let's do that. We really appreciate you coming today, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sorry we couldn't do it in the RV, but I didn't think
I know. The RV's
sweat it out. The RV's cool.
This is great.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah,
absolutely.